Hello my lovers of horror, and today I'm going to be reacting to a video from Don't Scare Claire called The Ghost of Elvis Presley Part 2 Las Vegas. I would like to thank Don't Scare Claire for allowing me to react to her videos. I will leave a link to her to her YouTube channel and to the original video that I'm going to be reacting to. Please go over and subscribe to Don't Scare Claire. Yeah, and I'm also and also sorry guys for me not uploading for him a while. I've been writing reviews that that some of my Instagram followers have been requesting me to do for like my horror movies. So if you do want to thank you to like request a horror movie review for me. Just write down comment section down down below and put down beside a hashtag horror movie request. I will not do thank you, yes, horror movie review request, hashtag horror movie review request. Yes guys, and also I'm not into revenge movies or into cannibal movies, so if you guys would like me to review them for you, they're not my type of movies, sorry. But anything apart from that, like slashers, horror comedies, or possession movies, I'll do reviews for. Okay guys, let's get straight into the video.
Between the years of 1969 and 1976, Elvis Presley dominated the stage of the newly opened International Hotel in Las Vegas, and later on the Las Vegas Hilton. Throughout his residency, he entertained crowds in sold-out show after sold-out show, performing twice a night, 7 days a week. But after Elvis's death in 1977, staff, performers and guests have all reported strange things happening that leave them thinking that maybe the king has come back for an encore. Or could it be something else that happened in this hotel's history that's responsible for some terrifying encounters, especially in the guest rooms themselves?
Please go over guys and subscribe to Don't Scare Claire. Okay guys, let's get into it. And my sister will leave her link in the description down below. I've said that, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
So last week we chatted about all of the weird goings on that have been reported in Graceland, which was obviously Elvis Presley's beloved family home, and where he also passed away on the 16th of August 1977.
Sorry guys, yeah. And if you have a favourite ever Elvis Presley song, or if it's a casual listener of his, please let me know what your favourite song is. Thank you.
But those were nowhere near the only alleged paranormal stories tied to the king of rock and roll, because Las Vegas actually played quite a significant part in Elvis's life, really. And so it does make sense why the ghost of Elvis Presley has been reported in Sin City. So if you missed last week's episode, we chatted a little bit about Elvis's life and obviously death. So I'd recommend going and watching that one. Of course, I'm going to recommend that you go watch more of my content, duh. But seriously though, it might help fill in a little bit of context for the part of Elvis's life that we're going to talk about today. Because everywhere you look nowadays in Vegas, all of the gift shops, all the tribute acts, there's references to Elvis. He's like synonymous with Las Vegas. But it really didn't start out like that, because Las Vegas was the place where Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, chose as kind of testing the waters, trying to break Elvis out of the southern honky-tonks and more into the national mainstream in the 50s. Elvis was a big deal in the circles that he was in, but it was time to take it to the next level. But it didn't exactly go spectacularly. He was booked in April 1956 for a 2-week contract to open for Shecky Green, a comedian who was performing at the New Frontier Casino, which isn't there anymore. It was demolished in like 2007. But for this show in 1956, Elvis had been marketed as this, quote, atomic-powered singer, sort of leaning a little on the fact that Nevada was home to the atomic weapons testing.
Like, if you remember, like, we've seen the Elvis movie.
Yeah.
And like, even if he fussed a hip, he'd get arrested for that.
That'll be called sexual something.
Come a bit closer.
That'll been called like sexual harassment.
Like, isn't it crazy? Like, how if you fussed a hip,
Like, do the
pelvic thrusting. Yeah, if you did like a pelvic thrust, or if you went. Yeah, yeah. If you did like the You know, like, you know, I'm not gonna stand up and do it, guys, but you know what I'm talking about.
How back then, like how it was back then to how it is now.
Extremely different. Like, it's crazy, you know, to like see the evolution of like dancing from what you can't do
Or the progression
to
of dancing.
it's okay for a woman to, you know, jiggle her behind for half an hour in a music video, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that, guys, but you know,
Well,
it's in the conversation.
You don't really listen to American music anymore, so
No.
it's not really.
I know, but say like it's in the conversation because Elvis Presley, he did all like his and so I think even guys like even you guys like if you've seen the movie with Austin Butler playing Elvis, and if you haven't, I highly recommend watching that because he's really good. Even though he doesn't do like the wee, you know, like how Elvis Presley had like the wee lip
thing,
the quiver thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's really and he's still a really good actor.
Sorry, I have to say this. Sorry.
Go on.
Every time I saw that movie and Elvis did his wee, you know, I always thought, okay, that gave the women fanny flutters because like they're like
They were actually, you know, that's what I was going to get to because when he first did his song, do you know, like his segment thing with like his band, and like he was like, what am I going to do? And then they keeps on doing it, and then they get and then they did his friends say, give it to him, Elvis son.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
and like
You want to start fainting like
yeah.
Flutters.
Yeah.
Make me feel
Like
something.
there will never be another Elvis.
No.
Never.
There would never be another person like Elvis, you mean?
Yeah. Exactly. Which is really sad, guys, because, you know... Okay, let's go back in the video, guys.
That was going on at the time. And so there Elvis was, doing what he did best on stage, doing what he was starting to become known for with his swinging hips and rock and roll. But Vegas was not ready for Elvis in the 50s. He was this larger-than-life performer who appealed to the teenagers of the time. The average Vegas audience of the 50s was not his demographic. And just to give you an idea of just how badly this show went for him, journalists who saw Elvis perform that show during these 2 weeks predicted that he didn't have a future as far as Vegas shows go. Las Vegas was not the place for this Memphis lad. Stick to the southern honky tonks. Once Elvis's 2 weeks were up, he left.
Oh, sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. But also, right, like, I've always heard, sorry, guys, for like, pausing, but, like, I've always heard, after a famous singer, say, like, Whitney Houston, God rest her soul, but, like, you know, for, like for singers like Whitney Houston and, like, Elton John.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, but, you know, I'm just talking about, like the ones I've done, like, played in, like, the Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Hotels, like, people say, like once they do that, they're not famous anymore. Well, if they're not famous, then how are they still selling out concerts at a hotel? At, like, the Troubadour or something like that?
Yeah, no, man.
Do you mean? It's like people... So it's like singers go... Say if you were a singer, right? And it's like if I told you, hey, don't go and do, like, don't go and do, like, a few, like, concerts in, like, Las Vegas. That's where singers go to, you know, end their career musically.
Or their career.
Yeah, ends. Which is not true at all.
You could say the same thing for actors as well. You could say the same thing for actors as well.
Yeah, but like
certain actors, certain careers don't really, they take a dip.
Yeah, because they're probably bad actors and they don't have any roles anymore.
This bad ratings and those.
I don't want to get into that, guys.
That's a whole different video.
That's going to be a whole different rant altogether.
That'll be a whole different video.
Alright, let's go back in the video.
Not the place for this Memphis lad. Stick to the southern honky tonks. Once Elvis's 2 weeks were up, he left Vegas and wouldn't return until July 1963 when he starred in the movie Viva Las Vegas, which
Viva
you could say would be
Las
more of a
Vegas.
success, going on to be Elvis's highest grossing film when it came out in June 1964, and basically starting what would seemingly now forever be a connection between Las Vegas and Elvis Presley. In 1967, Elvis would come back to Vegas, this time to get married married. His wedding to Priscilla took place at the Aladdin Hotel, which is also actually no longer there because it was demolished in 1998. But then in 1969, Elvis would again return to Las Vegas, this time to put in the work. Because a guy called Kurt Kerkorian, the same guy who would later go on to build the MGM Grand Hotel that we chatted about not too long ago, he'd spied the opportunity to build a hotel right next to the convention centre. And so by 1969, he was ready to open his latest venture, the International Hotel, which officially opened on the 2nd of July. And obviously, it's this huge hotel. It was the biggest in Nevada at the time, and it needed big name entertainers for its evening performances. Barbra Streisand was booked, along with Elvis Presley, two of the biggest names that you could get at the time. Apparently, the International Theatre, so like their main showroom, wasn't 100% complete by the 2nd of July, and it also didn't look like it does now. It's not like an actual theatre with rows of seating. It was set up so that these performances would be dinner shows, so there would be tables and chairs and people could eat and
just
have
like in the
cocktails
movie,
and whatnot, while watching the biggest stars of their time perform. But because it wasn't quite finished, Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, apparently said, quote, "Open with the girl and we'll follow her. Get the kinks out of the showroom." So Barbara did her 4-week contract, but I don't really think it blew anyone away. Apparently she bombed. I think it got better as the performances went on, as she kind of tweaked things and changed up the songs and whatnot. But she actually had a big calendar backstage with big X's on each day that had passed. Basically, she was counting down the performances until she had fulfilled her contract. So when it came to the 31st of July, it was time for Elvis to take the stage in his 4-week, 57-show engagement. But his last performance in Vegas, way back in 1956, was still playing on his mind. He was terrified that he was going to bomb again. Sammy Shaw was a comedian, and he was opening for Elvis that night. And as Shaw finished up his set and walked off, Elvis was there waiting at the side of the stage. They shook hands, kind of like to pass the baton, and apparently Sammy said that Elvis's hands were just as clammy as his. He was so nervous, but he really didn't have to be. Elvis had already known what it was like to bomb in Vegas, so he'd been doing his homework. He knew what kind of show the crowds wanted with their dinners and their cocktails, and he delivered. His opening night was so successful that Colonel Tom Parker and Alex Schufe, the hotel's president, actually renegotiated Elvis's contract, writing out the new terms on one of the hotel's tablecloths the next morning. And now you can actually see this tablecloth in Graceland. I think it's on display. But this deal committed Elvis to performing 2 shows every night over 4 weeks, twice a year in February and August, for the next 5 years, paying $1 million a year, plus all of the expenses like paying for his band and things like that. And this deal would turn out to just cement Elvis as that Las Vegas icon. There was a dinner show at 8 p.m. and the cocktail show at midnight, and he sold out every single show. While Elvis was doing his 4 weeks, he'd be staying on the 30th floor in the Imperial Suite, which later became known as just the Elvis Suite, even though headliners would use it when Elvis wasn't there. But the 30th floor now doesn't look like what it did back then, as in the 90s they had changed it up and it's now called the Tuscany Villa, and I think it's bigger now than it was. But still, for the time, it was more than fit for a king. And so for the first couple of years, this residency seemed to be good for Elvis. He seemed happy to be back performing live music, and it was a little different to touring. He kind of had a little home away from home instead of travelling the country. In 1971, Kurt Kerkorian sold his shares to Hilton Hotels, and so the International was renamed to the Las Vegas Hilton, with Hilton buying out everyone else in 1972, so then it was like exclusively owned by Hilton. And Elvis was continuing his residency, still performing to sold out crowds every night, but by 1973 it wasn't quite the show-stopping performance that he'd been putting on when he first started. Journalists were picking up on this shift as well, with one even saying that it felt like deja vu. Everyone's been here and seen it all, even with the quote-unquote new songs added to the set list. And Elvis himself was aware of this. Like, he'd admitted that he'd kind of lost the spark, that enthusiasm for playing Vegas. And he was obviously hurting as well. He'd got his divorce from Priscilla going on and figuring out what life was going to look like now. And as the 70s wore on, Elvis was still selling out every night, but it was just primarily those die-hard fans at this point. On the 12th of December 1976, Elvis Presley performed his final show at the Las Vegas Hilton, and he would pass away at Graceland just over 8 months later. In total, he performed either 636 shows, which is what the hotel website says, or 837.
Imagine that.
Wow.
600 or 800 some shows that he performed altogether.
600, 800.
That's an estimate.
Well, that just means you're not keeping count.
No, but like,
I know what you're trying to say.
On the website it says one thing.
Yeah.
It says nothing somewhere else.
So that just shows people don't really know how many shows he did.
He could have done 1,000.
But then
But
no one really knows.
Yeah, because like that doesn't count like the shows he did before he went to Vegas.
If they're just counting the shows he did in Vegas only, then I understand it's more 600 to 800. But if you're counting all the shows he did together, including the ones in Vegas, it's probably way more than that.
Probably 1,000, like.
Probably even 1,000, probably something like that.
Also, guys, if you somehow know how many shows Elvis Presley did altogether, concerts including the concerts he did before, in the middle, and during his Las Vegas one, if you somehow know, or if you can find out, please let me know down in the comment section down below. I'll be really interested to find out, because again, didn't they actually have him? Well, it's not them. His manager had him fanged up on drugs. Sorry guys. I'm not joking. Sorry. Had him fed something to keep him going.
I'm sure those Claire will tell us.
Exactly.
Did you hear that from someone, or?
It was in the movie. It just showed you him doing that, you know.
Probably tell us anyway.
Okay.
7, which is what the VP of Public Relations for the hotel says. But considering Barry Manilow, he's currently doing his residency at the hotel, and he apparently broke Elvis's record in September 2023 after he performed his 637th show. So that must be the right number of shows, that Elvis gave 636 performances. But either way, Elvis sold out every single one of his shows, spanning over 7 years at the International and then the Las Vegas Hilton. Since Elvis's reign came to an end at the Las Vegas Hilton, the hotel changed names a few more times, being called the LVH, Las Vegas Hotel and Casino, in 2012, and then the Westgate Las Vegas in 2014, which is what it's now called today. And the Westgate really leans on that history that Elvis made here, because he did make history. I think he broke attendance records within 7 days of his first 4 weeks there, as well as breaking the record for the number of consecutive sold out shows at that time. And so now you'll be greeted by a big bronze statue of Elvis Presley in the lobby. Obviously the hotel has been renovated and changed over the years, like the Elvis Suite, which is now the Tuscany Villa, that's been changed up. The backstage dressing room, that's actually been made into 2 separate rooms since Elvis used it, but they saved the bar. That's still the
sorry guys, but it's like Beatlemania.
Yeah.
You know, now and then a celebrity will have that.
Have the pivot knees.
Yeah, sometimes they pivot, they go down, they come back up.
Sometimes they pivot to stay where they are, but they just don't
get
back up.
Yeah, and it also depends on on the reputation.
For me, it was my favorite. Say it was JLS, for example.
Guys, if you remember JLS, if you're our age, please let me know down in the comment section down below if you ever listened to JLS,
Or
heard of them, what your favourite song is of them, if you used to be a fan of them, and which member or members did you like?
It's like JLS, for example. They could have a good song for most of them. Then, for me, you can have a good title song, but for me, I'm a sucker for title tracks, not like the actual, the B-side song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you could have a good title track, like a single one main, but then to me, it all depends on the B-sides, like the songs after.
Exactly.
dressing room, that's actually been made into 2 separate rooms since Elvis used it, but they saved the bar. That's still the same bar that was in the King's dressing room, as well as the mirror behind it that was also in the room in the 70s. But there's one more thing that may or may not be left over from Elvis's time at the hotel, because apparently every single performer that uses that dressing room while they're getting ready backstage will report that they feel the very intense presence of Elvis Presley himself. Just like at Graceland that we spoke about last week, it feels like you could just look over to the bar and see him sitting there, or open the door to the dressing room and you'll see him getting ready for one of his sold out performances. The feeling I'm getting is that Elvis hasn't left this building either, because you just have to type in Westgate Hotel Haunted into Google and you'll be bombarded with results claiming that the ghost of Elvis is still very much at the hotel. And even the staff feel this way too. Apparently anytime anything technical goes wrong in the hotel, they'll just say like, oh, Elvis is up to his old tricks again. And there was a video that a YouTuber called Not Leaving Las Vegas had done, where it was a tour of all the significant spots for Elvis fans in the Westgate, but apparently they had to keep coming back and attempting to film it because they were just encountering problem after problem. Batteries would drain, there was a freak storm in a season where there shouldn't have been, but the weirdest one, the Tuscany, which was obviously the old Elvis suite, they were trying to get in to film that segment when the door locked itself. And I'm not just talking like, oh, there's an error with the keycard here. No, the deadbolt, the part of the door that can only be locked on the inside, had been locked. Zero explanation. There was no one in that room, no way for that deadbolt to have locked itself. I'm assuming there's only one way in or out of that villa through those doors like most hotel rooms.
It's not like you know, because like when the wind,
like little Jimmy, your brother goes and just plays a wee prank on you, like, oh, go shut the door.
like you would know if it was like your brother, because like you'd see, oh sorry guys, like you would see his reflection, and you'd hear the footsteps coming out the door.
You couldn't say it was a breeze. A breeze wouldn't just lock it. A breeze would just keep slamming it against the flipping door frame. Push it a bit more. Like we've experienced. Like I'm not gonna go into it, but like after Mum passed, we've experienced some stuff.
Yeah.
I know myself as a child growing up, staying in my bedroom for so long. I would know the difference between, like a draft being able to, you know, just bang against the door, doesn't really close the door fully. To like a draft just open. Anyone tell me, can a draft really open the door, and then it's like closes it a bit again, like someone's trying to get out?
No.
I've never seen that before in my whole life.
Me neither.
But apparently they had to get engineering to come and take the doors off its hinges to get back into the villa. Not only that, but the full-bodied apparition of Elvis has also apparently been seen in the hallways of that villa, even after it's been changed up. So maybe he just didn't fancy the cameras that particular day. But then both guests and staff have also claimed that they've seen the figure of Elvis walking around the casino floor, which, I don't know about that one. It's got a high likelihood of being an actual impersonator, you know? Which kind of follows the same logic for the claim that some people have reported hearing Elvis's music, although there are no speakers in the corridors or any clear explanation of where it's coming from. And I don't know, Elvis is a big part of the Westgate's history, so Elvis fans will obviously go and visit the place where he was doing his residency for 7 years. And maybe they could be the ones playing the music, like a guest in one random hotel room that you can hear through the walls. But a lot of the paranormal stories that do intrigue me centre around where Elvis would have spent a lot of his time, the theatre area. So backstage, obviously this is where Elvis would have been psyching himself up ready for his evening shows. And apparently there are quite a lot of reports of staff members seeing the figure of Elvis back here. One time backstage, there was an employee who was working the graveyard shift at around 3 a.m, and he just so happened to look up and saw a man that looked like Elvis walking towards him. He was there thinking, that is uncanny, that is a brilliant impersonator, all the way down to his like mannerisms. As the man got closer to the employee, he was just about to tell this guy, mate, you're a brilliant impersonator. The Elvis got about a foot away from the employee when the area went icy cold, and then the figure completely dissolved right in front of the employee's face. Elvis has also apparently been spotted in the elevator, which would have taken him up from the dressing room to the backstage area. And there are also reports of seeing him in his famous white jumpsuit running towards the stage. But if you try and call out to him, he disappears. And now, there was one really compelling story that's been told a lot, and it comes from Wayne Newton, which I didn't know who this guy was before the video, but apparently he's one of the most well-known entertainers in Las Vegas. Like, he's known as Mr. Las Vegas. Like, he's a pretty big deal. And he was actually really good friends with Elvis. But basically what happened was, Wayne was offered the residency after Elvis had died, and he was a bit reluctant to take the spot. It'd been his close friend's stage for so long, but apparently he was encouraged by his family and manager, like, come on, this is a big deal, you shouldn't say no to this kind of opportunity. So he accepted, but as a bit of a nod to the late king, they came up with a medley of Elvis songs to perform as a tribute. So that was all good, he got started performing, it's all going well. Obviously the medley is going down super well with the audience. Before a show one night, he had been told that the balcony was closed that night, like there wouldn't be anyone up there, just so you don't go acknowledging a crowd that isn't there, you know? So they started the show and Wayne announced the medley, and it was then that all of the lights in the room stopped working, apart from one spotlight on Wayne, which is not how it was supposed to happen. Technical difficulties, we all have them. But then the sound went out, like all of the monitors on the stage and everything. But the band was still playing, so Wayne, being ever the professional, just carried on and started performing the medley. As he's singing his friend's songs, he looks up at the balcony and notices a man come walking in, which is odd. He was told before the show there wouldn't be anyone anyone there, but Wayne knew who he was. According to him, that was Elvis Presley. Wayne said that Elvis looked down at him and smiled, kind of like a "I'm doing okay kid, loving the tribute" medley. And then Elvis gave Wayne this knowing little wink, which is apparently an important detail. And he doesn't really know how long they were stood there looking at each other, just having this moment, but then all of a sudden all the lights came back on, the sound started working properly, the figure of Elvis had disappeared, and I mean the show must go on. So Wayne just carried on performing, played out the rest of the show, and that was that. After the show, while Wayne was in his dressing room, which of course he's taken over the residency, so this was also Elvis's old dressing room too, just as a side note, the drummer from the band comes into the dressing room just to chat a bit, and he goes, "Oh, that was a weird thing to happen tonight, right?" And Wayne agreed, very odd. The drummer then said, "And who was that guy on the balcony? I thought there wasn't supposed to be anyone up there." Wait, no, hang on, you saw him too? Yeah, apparently the drummer had also seen the man who Wayne was adamant had been the ghost of Elvis. And so the years go on, nothing happens after that encounter, and Wayne went on a TV show hosted by Kim Russo, who's this like celebrity psychic medium person. And so Kim and Wayne go to the Westgate Hotel, and the premise of this show is that the celebrity will take Kim to a place where they've potentially had a paranormal experience, and Kim will then attempt to pick up on any spiritual energy that may be connected to the place and to the celebrity. So while they were going around the Westgate, they started talking about Wayne's experience, and it was apparently at this point where Kim said that Elvis had mentioned to her the wink, because apparently this was very significant, but Wayne had never really known what it was about. He just assumed it was all part of the "oh, I'm doing okay, loving the tribute," but according to Kim, it wasn't, and it was all to do with one night in 1976. Yeah, I know, this story is just a bit wild and all over the place, but it's a good one. Wayne had not long become a dad, and he'd got a newborn baby daughter at home, and Elvis had called Wayne to come over to the Hilton to have a chat in his dressing room. Elvis sat him down and said basically along the lines of, "Look mate, you're working too hard," which was rich coming from Elvis Presley, but they were really close friends, and it was clear that Elvis wanted to look out for Wayne, especially now he'd become a dad. Obviously Elvis had all of this lived experience of going through the divorce with Priscilla. He of course doted on his daughter Lisa Marie, but because of the separation and his working all the time, didn't spend as much time with Lisa Marie as perhaps he would have wanted, and so he didn't want that for Wayne and his daughter Erin. Wayne obviously took all of Elvis's advice to heart. They were chatting for hours in this dressing room. Wayne actually went on to miss his second show of the night, so like the midnight cocktail show, because he was still talking with Elvis, just getting real deep. Apparently this was the first and last time he missed a second show in his entire career. And so after that, I think that a couple of years must have gone past, looking at the dates. It's kind of not how Wayne tells this story, but you'll see what I mean. Wayne said that because of what Elvis had told him about him and Lisa Marie and how Wayne really needed to take a step back and things, he'd actually gone and visited his daughter Erin one night. And the way he says it, it makes it sound like it was quite soon after he'd had this chat with Elvis. But Wayne and his daughter Erin, they apparently have a really nice evening, playing, watching TV. Erin says to her dad, "Don't go yet, wait by the front door for me." So he does. 5 minutes later, she comes down the stairs with a suitcase saying, "I'm coming with you." And so she does, and Wayne ends up having his daughter living with him in Las Vegas, and he and his wife actually end up getting divorced. And so the first thing that makes me think that it must have been quite a few years later was because obviously when Wayne and Elvis were having this talk, Erin had just been born. But the night in question when Erin goes with her dad, she's gone and packed a little suitcase of her own. Also, Wayne and his wife at the time, Elaine Okamura, divorced in 1985. So that's almost 10 years after this supposed dressing room conversation. So it could be that, yeah, it happened just a few years later, and obviously after Elvis had passed away. But the story comes full circle in this TV show with Kim Russo, because she tells Wayne that Elvis's visit to the theatre the night he saw him while he was on stage was because Elvis wanted to show him that he was proud of him for basically making the right choice, and potentially making the choice that maybe he'd wished someone had talked to him about while he was going through the same thing with Priscilla and Lisa Marie. And it's very much a heartwarming story, isn't it, of someone helping a close friend to keep that relationship with his daughter, and then, I don't know, to have that little moment of encouragement from after that person has died. It's just a nice little ending to the story, isn't it? You don't tend to get that with paranormal stories, but obviously it is all subjective to how you feel about mediums in general and that kind of TV programming, but I still wanted to include it anyway. But back to the very much usual alleged paranormal reports, there is one more connected with Elvis, and this one actually happens just outside the Westgate. So obviously over the years, a lot of the hotel, I guess it's a resort now, isn't it? Bits will get added to or removed or changed around, and they'd built some concrete retaining walls around the hotel, and one of these walls basically blocked off what used to be the private driveway into what was the International Hotel. And so now, multiple people, everyone from tourists just visiting the city, right through to locals that pass through that way every day, they've reported seeing what looks like Elvis driving a red Cadillac, and he's driving on the road before passing through the solid wall on what would have been that private driveway, which is such an interesting interesting story, knowing how many times Elvis would have driven up that driveway into the International Hotel and the Las Vegas Hilton, ready to do his shows over the 7-year residency he had there. It's just very interesting to think about. But there is another paranormal connection to the Westgate Hotel that I absolutely had to talk about here, because it's not just stories of alleged sightings of Elvis that are reported, and there's potentially a very good reason for that, because the Westgate does actually have a connection to another hotel that I've talked about not too long ago, and it was when the hotel was known as the Las Vegas Hilton. And it's not just that Kurt Kerkorian was involved in both of them, because on the 10th of February 1981, less than 3 months after the devastating fire in the MGM Grand Hotel, where 85 people lost their lives, 8 people would die in a fire at the Las Vegas Hilton Hotel that left hundreds more injured. And basically what happened was there was a guy called Philip Klein, the busboy. He'd got high on PCP and he'd used his lighter to set fire to some curtains that were hanging on the 8th floor. And it wasn't overly malicious, like it wasn't a, oh yes, I'm going to set fire to this hotel and burn it down. I think it was more of like he was just high and he was flicking his lighter and he just held it next to the curtains to see what it would do. But the fire quickly spread and got out of hand. The heat had shattered the window and the fire had actually spread upwards that way, with the heat again being so strong that it had broke the 9th floor window and then set fire to the carpets and the furniture on that floor, and so on until it had reached up to the 30th floor. The first 3 victims of the fire were hotel guests that were found in the elevator lobby on the 8th floor. 2 of these guests had been in the lift when the doors opened onto the already smoke-filled 8th floor. They were unconscious within seconds and completely gone pretty soon after that. 4 guests had died on the floors above the 8th because all of them had opened their guest room doors onto the smoke-filled corridor. And then the last fatality was just so sad. He fell to his death just after the fire had been brought under control. Like, he'd survived the worst of it. But I guess they'll never truly know whether he did actually fall. Did he jump, knowing what had happened with the MGM? Or was he pushed? And this fire, it was just so similar to the way that the MGM Grand Fire had played out. Guests reported that they'd never even heard a fire alarm other than an intercom system that was telling guests not to break the windows. There wasn't a way to alert everyone. There were no sprinklers to kill the fire before it took hold. And again, it was the smoke that got to the guests before the fire actually did. And I think that pretty much all of the injuries were because of smoke inhalation, and then all but one of the fatalities were due to the smoke. And because it had so many parallels with the MGM Grand Fire, drastic fire code changes were made in Nevada, and there's actually not been a single fatality in a high-rise hotel fire in Las Vegas ever since then. And Philip Klein, after initially being celebrated as a hero because he'd been going off in his initial statements about how he'd been filling rubbish bins with water to put out the fire and alerting guests and things, he was charged with 8 counts of murder and 1 count of arson, and he's now in prison for life without the possibility of parole for what he did. And so now at the Westgate, if you sift through the mentions of the ghost of Elvis Presley, there are a few more potentially paranormal stories that aren't necessarily to do with Elvis that guests have reported over the years. And these stories are pretty much exclusively weird things that have apparently happened in the guest rooms. One couple were just waking up at about 8 in the morning when they saw what looked like the small dark figure of a child walking towards their bathroom. But none of the victims of the fire were children, so is this something else going on here? There have been a lot of reports of things moving around in rooms. One claimed that their floor lamp was turned on just out of the blue while they were watching TV. One guest was adamant that she saw something in her mirror. There wasn't any more detail than that, other than it was one of those like blink and it's gone kind of encounters. Someone woke up in the middle of the night with their bathroom light on, when they knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that they turned it off because they always sleep with the lights off. And then there was one story of a woman that was staying at the Westgate with her 2 kids and her sister. They'd come back to the room to shower and settle down for the night, and so the woman was in the shower when she saw the figure of someone standing in the bathroom with her. You know when you look through those shower curtains and they're not totally opaque, you can see if there's someone on the other side. It was kind of like that. So this woman just assumed it was her sister and went back to showering until the water shut off. Okay, so that was very weird. She turned to look at the shower controls when she saw a hand being pulled back out of the shower, as if this hand had reached in and turned the shower off. Obviously, she ripped the curtain open, about to give her sister hell for turning the shower off, but there was no one there. Later on, she asked her sister if she really had turned the water off and just magically managed to do a disappearing act. But the sister was actually outside of the room, walking in the hallways with the kids, while the woman was taking her shower. She'd been the only living person in the entire room at that time. Creepy. But it gets even worse. Later on, one of the kids asked, "Can ghosts hurt you?" Which is quite a niche question to ask, and the sort of question that kids only ask if they've read or heard or seen something. The women asked, "Oh, why are you asking that sort of question?" When the kid goes, this kid, right? He goes, "Because there's a man in the bathroom, but he disappeared. I think he's a ghost." They did not stay the night in that guest room, and they actually left the hotel that night. I think I'd probably do the same. I don't even want to know what the ghost man's got in store for us once all the lights go off. No Thank you. So that story, allegedly involving this man, that could have potentially been one of the guests who lost his life in the 1981 fire. But with the Westgate Hotel, it will always find its way onto those most haunted hotel lists because of its connection with the king of rock and roll. There was one guest who was having a really restless night's sleep. Loads of weird things kept happening to him, and he just kept being disturbed all throughout the night by just unexplained things. At 4:30 a.m, he was woken up again, but there wasn't any sound or anything that could have explained why he woke up, other than the fact that the Marilyn Monroe portrait that's hung in a lot of the guest rooms as its decor was now unmistakably Elvis Presley. And it was so unmistakably now Elvis Presley that this guest was adamant that this portrait was now of the king in his white jumpsuit from the Aloha from Hawaii concert. He went to go take a
Are we sure some motherfucker did not run in the bridge? Are we sure some bloody person did not just do a little Houdini act, go in the room, put that picture up and just jumped out the window with the flipping Marilyn Monroe? I'm not saying it wasn't supernatural, but I've never heard that happening before.
That's hung in a lot of the guest rooms as its decor was now unmistakably Elvis Presley. And it was so unmistakably now Elvis Presley that this guest was adamant that this portrait was now of the king in his white jumpsuit from the Aloha from Hawaii concert. He went to go take a photo of it, obviously to just check this isn't just some sort of unconscious coming out of sleep thing. And he'd gone to sleep holding his phone after it had already been thrown across the room earlier in the night. And now at 4:30 in the morning, he looked down and couldn't find it. So he was like looking around the room from his bed and found it again thrown far away from where it should have been if he'd have just dropped it while he was asleep. So he just sat up in bed, properly trying to wake himself up at this point, like rubbing his eyes, blinking really hard, definitely no sleepiness, grogginess left, and looked again at the portrait. Yep, still definitely Elvis Presley. So it was then that he got up out of bed, grabbed his phone off the floor and went to take the photo. But Elvis was gone when he turned back. It had gone back to the Marilyn Monroe portrait, which is just very weird, right? I'd be inclined to chalk that one up to just being half asleep, but to rub your eyes and do the double take like out of a Looney Tunes episode, and it's still the very specific image of Elvis in his Aloha from Hawaii show. Very interesting. And so while it was no secret that Elvis did seem to be pretty bored of Vegas by the end of his residency there, it does appear that he is very much still around the Westgate Hotel in some capacity or another, and is perhaps joined by other entities that remain at the hotel, potentially from the 1981 tragedy. But tell me what you think about all of it, about Graceland and the other Memphis stories last week, and what you think of these stories from the Westgate Hotel now. Obviously, I did my conclusions at the end of last week's episode, and I kind of feel like a lot of it still rings true with tonight's encounters. Elvis Presley was a huge, larger-than-life character, and despite how it declined in the later years, performing at the International and the Las Vegas Hilton was a huge kind of era in his career. It was his home away from home for performing when he wasn't away touring, and he spent a lot of time there over those 7 years. It makes sense that he would leave some sort of energetic imprint there, so I can totally understand those more residual reports, and again that feeling of the very strong presence of Elvis. But just like last week, you've got to consider the impact that Elvis had in his life, influencing the stories after his death, because it's got to be said, busy hotel, full of people, a good portion of them may be Elvis fans that just want to see where he performed for so many years, and then there are the connections that the hotel itself makes with Elvis, like the bronze statue, and I think very occasionally they offer tours of like all of the Elvis significant spots. Might be wrong there though. But the point I'm trying to make is that, again, especially if you are a fan and you know the history, you're setting yourself up, priming yourself to have an encounter that you believe is then paranormal. Like, I don't know, you might hear another guest playing Elvis music and immediately jump to, oh, I can hear the echoes of Elvis rehearsing. You know what I mean? And then with the paranormal reports in the guest rooms, yes, it could again be Elvis playing pranks on guests, as it is claimed by some hotel staff, but I definitely think that it could also have something to do with the fire. Obviously, the death wasn't on the scale of the MGM Grand Hotel fire, but try telling that to the 8 people who lost their lives and their families. It's still a very traumatic thing to happen, so I could absolutely believe that the fire could have something to do with the activity in the guest rooms. Or could it have been from something else entirely? Like I said in the MGM Grand video, these are huge Las Vegas hotels. People die in them of both natural and unnatural causes all the time. So unless you clear the entire hotel out and set out to conduct a prohibitively huge paranormal investigation, and then cross-reference that with other paranormal investigations investigations that also need to be conducted in the hotel in the same conditions, you're never going to know, are you? I mean, you're never going to truly know either way, let's face it. But I guess, especially for the Elvis fans, the stories as they are of the king running to the stage or being seen in the theatre comforting old friends, it's a nice little detail, isn't it? The potential that you might even have your own little encounter with your hero if you visit the hotel nowadays. But anyway, please do let me know your thoughts. I really enjoyed doing this two-parter. I grew up in an American rock and roll 50s car scene. We were more of a Johnny Cash household, but obviously Elvis is a huge part of that whole scene. So I knew I'd always want to at some point cover his story. And so if you enjoyed it too, please give the video a little like and subscribe for more stories like this. I have a lot of UK haunted locations on my schedule, but I love dropping in different things like this. And I get a lot of requests for American stories, so I'm sure there will be plenty you will find interesting enough to stick around and listen to, hopefully. But anyway, that is all from me today. I cannot wait to chat with you more about the morbid, mysterious and macabre. So until next time, sleep safe.
Okay guys, that was Don't Scare Claire's video, The Ghost of Elvis Presley Part 2 Las Vegas. Really great video. I think she's extremely underrated.
Yeah.
And if you guys haven't already, please go and subscribe to her. And she's a lovely person to talk to. I've talked to her on Instagram a few times. Lovely woman to talk to. And, you know, very kind person. I do think Elvis is where he is, but that's all I'll say.
It's hard.
Exactly, Claire.
It's hard to say, really.
It is hard to say. Okay, guys. Okay, guys. If you've liked this video, please leave me please leave a like and comment. And also, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel. Also, and then guys, again, I will leave a link to Don't Scare Claire's YouTube channel down below, and also the link to the original video so that you can give it your proper viewing and that you can watch it fully, so you can have your own thoughts on it too. And guys, if you haven't watched my other Don't Scare Claire reaction videos, I do have a playlist for her. For the reaction I've done for her videos so far, and they will be in my playlist section. And then also, guys, and also, guys, thank you so much for thank you so much for watching my channel and my videos, and thank you for being so patient with me. I have been getting requests to do horror movie reviews, and that's what I've been doing. And then also, guys, if you also yourself want to request a horror movie review for me, please put down your horror movie. Please put down the horror movie that you want me to review, and then also put beside it or in front of it hashtag horror movie review request, and I will do it. Okay, guys, until next time, bye.